when we got to talk about Hamilton. When you talk about that whole dynamic and how there's such a connection, like when I first saw it, I'm like, there's so many things that are working so well together, and then before you know it, you're like, wait a minute, they're actually rapping these lines on top of all this.
Yeah.
they're performing these lines in hip hop, and it's like that. It's just a whole nother level of experience. And so I guess talk about, like, did you know in preparing for Hamilton, when did you know it was just extraordinary?
Well, I confess, I knew that it would be extraordinary before it even happened. I was actually on stage with Lin Miranda when he told me he had the idea. I was on stage doing another Broadway show in that same theater we were doing in the Heights, which was also at the Richard Rodgers. And there was a point in the show where his character and my character would go upstage while another scene had come downstage, and the actors were doing their number. And so we were up there, and it's a 3.5-minute song. Lynn's one of my best friends, so we talk. You know what I mean? And we we're not in character, but we're there. Right. And we get right to the end of that song, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, I got my next thing." I was like, "Great." And in my mind, I'm like, well, who am I going to play? What am I going to do? Because I'm an actor. Yeah. But we had to go out on stage at that moment, and he didn't get to finish telling me anything about what he was, what he was thinking about.
That's cool.
That was in 2009. So this is, I think, a really important thing to understand, and that is, really good things sometimes take a long time. Really good ideas can take years to cultivate. You'd think it's like, oh, okay, I've got this idea. 6 months later, we're working on the first act. Another 6 months, we're working on the second act. Then we do a workshop, and we do another workshop, and then all of a sudden, we're on Broadway. And it couldn't be further from the truth. The development of this took 5.5, 6 years, right? And that's a lot of sitting around a table and recording demos and reading things out loud, and for no money. Like, no money. Maybe $100 for a week's worth of sitting around a table. And that happened at a time where I was, we had our first child. We were about to have our second child. And as we're working through all of this, work was tricky, right? Like, you got to eat, you got to find work. I did 4 Broadway shows in the amount of time that Lynn had told me about it, to the time that we opened at the Public Theater with Hamilton. And in fact, I didn't even participate in the 2 workshop productions that they did, which was basically, most of the show is written. There's a lot of choreography learned. There's not an audience that goes to see it, but it's like producers and industry people who would be interested in, and understand what's happening with it. But because I was doing 2 separate shows when they had done the other 2 workshops, and so I didn't join the company until the Public Theater run. And fortunately, Lynn wrote Washington for me to play. And so the other really great lesson in this is that I had always been invested since 2002 in our friendship and encouraging one another and being available when Lynn had a project to work on when there wasn't any money. But you do it because it's about the collaboration, and it starts to fuel the other things that you get to do. And so when this, all of that to say that when this thing finally came to the time we were about to mount the production, off we went. And it just kind of snowballed from there. But I have to tell you, I believed it was going to be special because Lynn's a very special artist, and he's doing something that nobody else does. And hip hop is a language that speaks to him authentically. And so when you're collaborating, you just go, and you throw every bit of intention and energy you have into it. So I believed it was going to be special because the experience was already special. The fact that it was popular and got popular was attributable to a lot of different things, but that was the reason why I thought it would be a special experience.